Above the timeless pyramids, a different zodiac wheel once turned in the stars. What if the ancient Egyptians possessed a celestial map far older and more mysterious than the one we use today? This is the world of the ancient Egyptian zodiac, a sophisticated system woven from astronomy, mythology, and profound spiritual belief. By the end of this journey, you will understand the origins, symbols, and 20 enduring mysteries that have puzzled scholars for centuries. We will uncover why a temple ceiling became a star map and how a cycle of 1,460 years held the key to their calendar. What part of the ancient sky calls out to you most? For the ancient Egyptians, the sky was not a distant void but a vast, flowing mirror of their world. They envisioned the cosmos as a great celestial river, the twin of their life-giving Nile. Just as the Nile's annual flood brought fertile soil and renewal to the land, this heavenly Nile brought order and cyclical time to the universe. Their entire understanding of the cosmos was rooted in this powerful, watery metaphor, a belief that the patterns above directly mirrored the rhythms of life below. This was not just poetry, it was their fundamental astronomy. They meticulously charted the movements of stars and planets, seeing them as divine barks or boats sailing this dark water. Among these travelers, one group held a special, eternal status. The circumpolar stars, those that never dip below the horizon, were known as the imperishable ones. These undying stars were associated with the gods and the eternal soul of the pharaoh, a constant reminder of life after death. It was from this rich cosmological soup, this blending of precise observation and deep spiritual belief, that their unique concept of a zodiac began to form. Unlike the later Greek system of 12 equal signs, the Egyptian approach was deeply tied to this celestial landscape, mapping the gods and their stories directly onto the stars that sailed their heavenly Nile. High on the ceiling of a temple dedicated to the goddess Hathor, a stone sky waits to be read. This is the Denderah Zodiac, a massive circular slab of sandstone covered in exquisitely carved figures that was discovered in the 19th century. When French engineers first saw it, they were utterly baffled. They had never seen anything like it in Egypt. The scene was a complex mix of familiar zodiac symbols, like the bull of Taurus and the lion of Leo, alongside the unmistakable gods and goddesses of the Egyptian pantheon. Here was the goddess Nut, who arched across the sky, and the hippopotamus goddess Taweret, standing near a crocodile. This was not a simple star chart, it was a cosmic fusion. The presence of Greco-Roman constellations alongside traditional Egyptian decans revealed a culture at a crossroads, absorbing outside influences while holding fast to its own celestial identity. This magnificent carving was not merely decorative, it was a functional map of the heavens as the Egyptians understood it during the Ptolemaic period. Each figure, each symbol, was a piece of a larger puzzle, a snapshot of the sky frozen in stone. The Denderah Zodiac became a pivotal key for scholars, but it also posed a profound question. Was this a true representation of the older, purely Egyptian system, or was it a sign of that ancient knowledge being rewritten under a new, foreign sky? The answer lies in learning the language of the Decans, the original Egyptian star clocks that predated this famous ceiling by thousands of years. Long before the Denderah ceiling was carved, the Egyptians were telling time by a far older celestial system. This was the world of the Decans, 36 star groups that rose in succession, 10 days apart throughout the year. Each decan was a distinct constellation or a single bright star, and its heliacal rising, its first reappearance in the pre-dawn sky after a period of invisibility, was a moment of profound significance. This event did more than just mark the hour of the night. It announced the start of a new 10-day week in the Egyptian civil calendar. Picture a stargazer on the banks of the Nile watching the eastern horizon. The moment a specific decan star broke into view just before the sun washed out the sky, it signaled the beginning of a new 10-day period. This created a celestial clock of remarkable precision, dividing the year into 36 weeks of 10 days each, plus 5 extra days to complete the solar cycle. But the Decans were more than just a farmer's almanac or a timekeeper for night watchmen. They held a deep spiritual power, especially in the journey to the afterlife. Inside the pyramids and on coffin lids, funerary texts listed these Decans, providing the deceased with a star map to navigate the dark waters of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. Knowing the names and order of the Decans was like possessing a password to eternity, allowing the soul to join the gods sailing in the bark of the sun. This system represents the very first form of Egyptian astrological division, a sacred slicing of the sky that connected the rhythm of human life directly to the cosmos. It was a practical, spiritual, and astronomical tool all at once, a foundation upon which all later Egyptian star lore would be built. So while the zodiac we know groups the sky into 12, the ancient Egyptians saw it in 36 parts, a more intricate and deeply personal clockwork of the heavens. The origin of the Egyptian zodiac signs is our first great enigma, a puzzle that divides scholars to this day. Were these celestial symbols a purely homegrown creation, sprouting from the banks of the Nile, or were they ideas imported from distant lands? The debate centers on a critical question of timing and cultural exchange. We know the Egyptians had their own sophisticated star maps, the Decans, for thousands of years. These were fundamentally Egyptian, deeply tied to their calendar and their gods. Yet the more familiar zodiac symbols, the ram, the bull, the twins, appear clearly in later artifacts like the Denderah Zodiac. These figures bear a striking resemblance to the Mesopotamian and later Greek zodiacs. So, did the Egyptians develop these concepts independently, only to have them look similar by cosmic coincidence? Or did traders and conquerors carry these celestial ideas along the ancient trade routes, where they were then absorbed and reshaped by Egyptian priests to fit their own divine narratives? The frustrating and fascinating truth is that there is no definitive evidence pointing solely one way. The genesis of this system is hidden in the lost libraries and unwritten conversations of the ancient world. This lack of a clear origin story is not a gap in knowledge, but the very heart of the mystery, inviting us to wonder how cultures whisper to each other across the centuries through the silent language of the stars. Yet this intricate dance of Decans was anchored by one star above all others. In the vast Egyptian sky, no celestial body held more power than Sirius, the dog star. The Egyptians called it Sothic, and its annual reappearance was nothing short of a cosmic alarm clock. After a 70-day period of invisibility, Sothic would burst into the pre-dawn sky just before the sun. This event, the heliacal rising of Sirius, did not merely signal a new day, it heralded the entire Egyptian New Year. Its timing was uncanny, perfectly coinciding with the life-giving inundation of the Nile River. As the star returned, the river would swell, flooding its banks and depositing the rich, black silt that made the desert bloom. This was the foundation of their entire civilization, and they saw it as a direct act of the cosmos. The star and the river were partners in a divine cycle of death and rebirth. But beyond this annual event lay a deeper, far grander celestial rhythm known as the Sothic cycle. The Egyptian civil calendar was 365 days long, missing the extra quarter day of the true solar year. This meant their calendar slowly drifted, losing one day every 4 years against the actual seasons and the return of Sirius. It would take 1,460 of our years for the Egyptian calendar and the heliacal rising of Sirius to realign perfectly. This immense period, the Sothic cycle, represents a breathtaking scale of astronomical observation. Could this have been more than just a calendar correction? Some researchers wonder if the Egyptians saw this as a great cosmic reset, a prophetic timeline woven into their understanding of the zodiac. Did they believe that after 1,460 years, the gods would usher in a new age, a complete renewal of the world's order? The Sothic cycle stands as a silent monument to their patience, their precision, and their profound belief that human fate was written in the slow, patient turning of the stars. Deep within the oldest pyramids, carved into the very walls meant to last for eternity, lies a language of the stars we have only begun to decipher. These are the pyramid texts, the world's earliest known religious writings, and they are saturated with cryptic celestial references. They speak of the pharaoh joining the imperishable stars, of transforming into a god and ascending a ladder to the sky. But the true meaning behind these ancient spells is one of our greatest losses. This original stellar religion, the pure Egyptian understanding of the cosmos that likely birthed the later Zodiac, has been fractured by time. We have the words, but we have lost the context. When a text says the deceased king becomes the morning star, what precise astronomical event is being described? Is it a metaphor or a literal instruction for the soul's journey based on a specific star's position? The priests who wrote these texts possessed a sophisticated knowledge of the night sky, a knowledge passed down orally and never fully written down. This creates a haunting gap. We see the shadow of a complex star cult in these inscriptions, a system where every decan and every planet was a divine entity. But the living, breathing practice, the rituals performed under specific constellations, the detailed interpretations that connected a person's fate to the rising of a certain star, most of that is gone. It is the difference between finding a map with place names and having a seasoned guide to explain the terrain. We have the map, but the guide has been silent for millennia. This loss forces us to piece together their cosmic view from fragments, forever wondering how much of the intricate celestial tapestry that connected the Nile to the heavens has simply faded from memory. That cryptic stellar religion of the pyramids finds its voice in the animal figures pacing the celestial river. The Egyptian sky was a living menagerie of divine power, where gods wearing animal forms were not just placed among the stars, they were the stars. The lioness Sekhmet embodied the scorching, destructive power of the sun, while the ibis-headed Thoth was the cool, measured intellect of the moon. This was not random symbolism. Each animal was a carefully chosen key to understanding a cosmic force. Why a hippopotamus for the goddess Taweret, who guarded the northern sky? The hippo is a creature of both water and land, a protective mother who can be fiercely aggressive, perfectly mirroring a constellation that was seen as a guardian of the celestial pole, a stable point around which the entire sky turned. Her form encoded a scientific truth about the cosmos within a spiritual image of protection. The choice of a crocodile for the god Sobek is another profound clue. Crocodiles lurk beneath the water's surface, emerging with explosive force. This aligns Sobek with unpredictable, transformative power, much like a comet or a meteor streaking through the predictable order of the night sky. His animal nature tells us how the Egyptians viewed certain celestial events, not as random accidents, but as the sudden, decisive actions of a god. The mystery deepens when we realize these associations were not just mythic, they were observational. The baboon, sacred to Thoth, is known for its chattering greeting of the sun at dawn. It is no coincidence that baboon constellations are often linked to the horizon, the threshold between night and day. The Egyptians saw the animal's behavior on Earth and mapped that essence directly onto the patterns of the heavens. They were reading the book of nature in the most literal way, seeing the same divine principles operating in a baboon's cry and in the sun's first light. So when you look at a depiction of the sky goddess Nut, swallowed by the night only to give birth to the sun each morning, you are seeing a grand, cosmic ecosystem. Every animal god was a vital part of that system, a piece of a code that explained everything from the flooding of the Nile to the journey of the human soul. What other profound truths are still hidden within the silent forms of these celestial creatures, waiting for us to learn their ancient language? This slow drift of the calendar created a hidden schism in their cosmic worldview. For centuries, the Egyptians relied on a lunar calendar perfectly synchronized with the agricultural and religious cycles. The rising of a specific Deccan star would signal a specific festival, and the Nile's flood would arrive as predicted. Their entire spiritual and practical life was in lockstep with this celestial clock. But then they introduced the fixed civil calendar of 365 days. While simpler for administration, this new system began to march out of sync with the actual seasons and the very stars that gave it meaning. Imagine the confusion of a priest over generations. His ancestors knew that the heliacal rising of the star Sothic meant the new year and the flood. But in his time, the calendar said it was New Year, yet the star was not in the sky and the Nile banks remained dry. The celestial event, the foundation of their prophecy and ritual, was now detached from its official date. This was more than a bureaucratic error, it was a cosmic tear in the fabric of their reality. The original zodiac, the system of Decans, was built to reflect the true rhythm of the heavens. As the calendar drifted, the connection between a star's meaning and its seasonal influence was severed. A Decan that once heralded the planting season might now rise during the harvest. So what happened to its astrological significance? Did its power simply vanish, or did its meaning become secret, known only to a few priests who understood the true sky versus the official calendar? This suggests a lost layer of interpretation, a hidden zodiac operating behind the public one. The official temple rites may have followed the civil calendar, but perhaps the true mystical knowledge adhered to the older stellar time. This calendar shift forces us to ask a profound question. When we look at an Egyptian zodiac symbol, are we seeing its original meaning tied to the seasons and the Nile? Or are we seeing its meaning from a later period, after it had already drifted from its celestial anchor? The answer could mean we have misunderstood their celestial language from the very start. The Denderah Zodiac is far more than a static star map. It is a complex machine of stone built to convey layered secrets. Look closely at the figures who do not simply stand among the constellations, but actively hold them. A human form cradles a small circle, another grasps a different disk. These are not decorative elements, they are precise astronomical notations. The circles represent planets, and the figures holding them are believed to be the so-called planetary divinities. Each one's position and gesture may encode a specific celestial event, perhaps a rare conjunction or the retrograde motion of a wandering star captured for eternity. The debate among scholars is not about what these symbols are, but what they were meant to accomplish. Were they a snapshot of the sky on the day the temple was consecrated, a sort of cosmic founding charter? Or were they instructions for a deeper, esoteric knowledge, a guide for the soul's ascent through the planetary spheres? This leads to the ceiling's most defining feature, the grand circle that is the ecliptic path. The Egyptian depiction of this sun's highway is unique. It is not an empty line, but a wide processional avenue populated by a dense crowd of deities and symbols. Unlike the Greek model, which emphasizes the 12 constellations, the Denderah ecliptic presents a continuous, flowing narrative. It merges the familiar zodiacal figures with the older Egyptian Decans, creating a hybrid sky where a Roman Virgo might stand near the Egyptian Decan of a seated god. This fusion is the core of the mystery. Does this combined path represent a philosophical compromise, a mere blending of two cultures for political purposes under Ptolemaic rule? Or does it reveal a hidden, older Egyptian zodiac system that was always more fluid, one that the priests were now translating into a new symbolic language to preserve it? Some researchers see the entire composition as a sophisticated computer, its symbols interlocking to calculate dates far into the past or future. Others argue it is a spiritual roadmap where every figure is a station on the soul's journey through the Juwat, the underworld, which was itself a mirror of the night sky. The truth may be that it is all of these things at once, a testament to a civilization that saw no division between the clockwork of the heavens and the destiny of the spirit. This spiritual roadmap of the stars finds its most explicit guide in the Book of the Dead. Within these sacred papyrus scrolls, placed in tombs to ensure safe passage, the connection between the celestial and the afterlife becomes breathtakingly clear. The spells and vivid illustrations are not just prayers, they are a literal navigation manual for the soul, and the Decans and constellations are its landmarks. One critical spell describes the deceased knowing the names and forms of the 36 Decans. This was not abstract knowledge, it was a practical requirement. As the soul journeyed through the perilous zones of the Juat, the underworld, it needed to identify each Decanic gatekeeper, often depicted as a star god holding a knife. To speak the correct name of the Decan was to pass safely, to fail was to be destroyed. This transforms the Egyptian zodiac from a simple timekeeper into an active spiritual force. The constellations became more than patterns. They were a series of toll booths on the celestial Nile, each one a test the soul had to overcome. The mystery here is one of profound integration. How did the Egyptians so perfectly merge their astronomical observations with their theology of resurrection? The Great Bear constellation, for instance, was known as the leg of Seth, the god of chaos. In the Book of the Dead, the deceased must recite a spell to avoid being caught by this dangerous, shackled constellation. This is not a myth told about the stars, it is an operational warning for a traveler. The sky was the Juat, and the Juat was the sky. This suggests their entire zodiacal system was at its heart a chart for the ultimate journey. Every star's rising and setting mirrored the soul's death and rebirth. So when an Egyptian learned the Decans, they were not merely memorizing a calendar, they were studying the map for their own eternity, ensuring they could sail the divine bark right into the company of the imperishable gods. The final, haunting question this raises is whether their zodiac was ever truly about predicting a mortal life, or if its primary purpose was always to guide the soul through its final, most important voyage. The Denderah Zodiac itself stands as a silent witness to this great cultural fusion, a beautiful and contentious mystery. When Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, a centuries-long process of blending began, forever altering the celestial landscape. Greek rulers like the Ptolemies did not simply impose their own beliefs. They actively sought to merge them with the ancient Egyptian traditions to legitimize their power. This syncretism created hybrid gods like Serapis, who combined Osiris and Apis with Greek deities like Zeus. In the stars, this meant the familiar figures of the Greek zodiac, the ram, the scales, the archer, were laid directly over the older Egyptian Decans. But was this a respectful merging of two great systems, or a fundamental overwriting of the original Egyptian sky? The mystery lies in deciding what is authentically Egyptian in the zodiacs we now study. Look at the constellation we know as Leo the lion. For the Greeks, this was the Nemean lion from the labors of Hercules, but for the Egyptians, the lion was already a potent celestial symbol, linked to their fierce goddess Sekhmet and the annual flooding of the Nile, which coincided with the sun's presence in that part of the sky. So when we see a lion on the Denderah ceiling, is it the Greek beast or the Egyptian goddess, or has it become an entirely new, fused entity whose original meaning is now buried? This cultural negotiation happened at every level. The Egyptian Decan system, with its 36 star groups, was a precise linear clock. The Greek zodiac, with its 12 equal signs, was a more symbolic, personality-focused circle. The version that survived history is the hybrid. This forces a difficult question. Did the Greek influence preserve Egyptian astronomy by giving it a new form that the wider classical world could understand? Or did it fundamentally dilute a purer, older knowledge that was then lost? The answer is not clear, and it challenges our very search for an authentic Egyptian zodiac. We are left studying a sky where the gods wear two sets of masks, and untangling their original voices from the chorus of history is one of the field's most enduring puzzles. The precision of the decanal clockwork rivals any modern instrument. Each of the 36 star groups rose with a reliability so exact it governed the entire civil calendar, marking 10-day weeks with unerring consistency. The true mystery is not just their accuracy, but how they achieved it without a single lens or telescope. They possessed no advanced optics, only the naked eye, a clear desert sky, and an unwavering patience that stretched across generations. Their primary tool was the Merkit, a simple instrument consisting of a palm rib with a slit cut in it and a plumb bob. An astronomer priest would sight a specific star through the slit, using the weighted string as a vertical reference to note its exact position on the horizon. Night after night, year after year, they recorded these subtle shifts, building a celestial database over centuries. This long-term observation allowed them to master the complex pattern of a star's disappearance and its dramatic return 70 days later. The accumulated data was likely passed down in temple archives, a living library of the sky's movements, but this practical explanation only deepens the enigma. How did they maintain such observational consistency over millennia, especially as dynasties rose and fell? Could they have used other lost tools, perhaps water clocks synchronized with star transits, or aligned stone structures that acted as giant horizon markers? The sheer scale of their project is staggering, a multi-generational scientific endeavor dedicated to mapping time itself onto the heavens. Their success suggests a secret methodology, a priestly science so effective its finest techniques were never written down, preserved only for the initiated. What other profound astronomical truths did they encode in their rituals? Truths we are only now beginning to glimpse through the silent, patient language of the Decans. The stars were not merely observed by the pharaohs, they were a primary source of their authority. A king's right to rule was not simply inherited, it was written in the heavens and affirmed by the celestial clockwork of the zodiac. The entire cosmic order, known as Maat, depended on the pharaoh's unique ability to act as the bridge between the gods and the people. When a specific Decan star made its heliacal rising, it was not just a date on a calendar, it was a divine endorsement of the king's reign. Imagine the powerful symbolism of a coronation timed to coincide with the rising of a star associated with Osiris, the god of resurrection and kingship. It would send an unmistakable message to every priest, noble, and farmer that the new pharaoh was stepping into his role with the full backing of the cosmos. This was celestial propaganda of the highest order, a way to demonstrate that the king's power was woven into the very fabric of the universe. The mystery lies in the specific, secret knowledge the royal astronomers must have possessed. Did they have the ability to predict rare planetary conjunctions years in advance, staging public ceremonies to make it appear the pharaoh commanded the gods themselves? A spectacular event like Jupiter, the king of planets, passing near Regulus, the king's star, could be presented as the sky itself bowing to the earthly ruler. This was more than pageantry, it was a psychological and spiritual tool to maintain Maat, the balance of the universe. The pharaoh's connection to the zodiac was therefore a two-way street. His rituals on Earth were believed to sustain the orderly movement of the stars, and in return, the stars validated his sacred duty. If the celestial patterns remained stable and predictable, it was proof the pharaoh was fulfilling his cosmic role. But what happened during times of chaos when a weak pharaoh ruled and the Nile failed to flood on time? Would the people look at the drifting calendar and the misaligned stars and see a king who had lost the favor of the gods? The zodiac was not just a crown of light for the pharaoh, it was also the ultimate judge of his divine fitness. A significant number of star groups named in ancient texts remain cosmic ghosts to us today. We read their names in temple inscriptions and funerary papyri, names like the mesh, the flock, or the leg, but we cannot point with certainty to the patterns they formed in the night sky. This is not a simple translation error, it represents a fundamental gap in our ability to see the heavens through Egyptian eyes. Their constellation of the ox leg, for instance, is mentioned repeatedly. We can guess it might correspond to our Big Dipper, but we cannot be sure, and the subtle differences in interpretation matter immensely. The Egyptians saw a divine animal's limb, a symbol of strength and perhaps sacrifice, where we see a ladle or a plow. The loss of these specific star patterns means we have lost the stories and spiritual principles they embodied. Each missing constellation is a lost chapter in their cosmic narrative, a deity or a concept that has simply vanished from the celestial map. Consider the practical consequence. A funerary spell instructs the soul to avoid the red star within the constellation of the serpent. We can identify the star, but without knowing the full shape and myth of the serpent, we miss the complete danger the soul was meant to navigate. The constellation was not just a warning sign, it was the entire story of the threat itself. This forces us to ask a haunting question. How many other celestial beings, guardians, and monsters that populated their spiritual universe are now invisible to us? Their zodiac was a complete ecosystem of divine actors, and we are left trying to understand the plot with half the characters missing. The true scale and richness of their cosmic world may be forever beyond our reach, hinted at only by the silent, empty spaces between the stars we can still name. Yet the grand cosmic dramas of pharaohs and gods leave us with a profound silence about the common farmer, the potter, the weaver. How did the celestial wisdom of the Decans and Zodiac translate into the dusty, sun-baked reality of everyday existence in an Egyptian village? The frustrating truth is that the evidence for personal horoscopes or daily omens among the populace is vanishingly thin. The papyri that survive were largely written by and for the elite, the priesthood, and the royal court. The intricate knowledge of the star clock seems to have been a closely guarded priestly science, a powerful tool of the state not freely shared. So did the average Egyptian have a personal zodiac sign? The answer is likely no, at least not in the way we understand it today. Their connection to the stars was more communal and agricultural than individual and predictive. The entire village would have been attuned to the great public celestial events. The heliacal rising of Sirius was not a secret omen. It was a national broadcast, a signal heard by everyone that the flood was coming and it was time to prepare. The rising of specific decans would have signaled the time to sow or to harvest, creating a collective rhythm that governed the labor of the entire nation. This was astrology on a grand, environmental scale, where your fate was tied not to the star under which you were born, but to the successful, timely response of your community to the stars that ruled the seasons. The mystery, then, is not in finding personal horoscopes, but in understanding how this cosmic framework seeped into the quiet moments of private life. A mother might not know which decan ruled her child's birth, but she would certainly know the myth of the goddess Taweret, the hippopotamus protector of women and childbirth, whose constellation watched over the northern sky. She might offer a small prayer to that celestial guardian during labor, connecting her personal struggle to a divine power in the stars. A fisherman on the Nile, setting his nets before dawn, would see the Decan stars fading in the light and know he was part of a cycle as old as the gods themselves. His personal omen was the success of his catch, which he would have attributed to the favor of the river and the heavens in unison. Their zodiac was not a list of personality traits, but a living, breathing backdrop to existence, a series of divine signals for the practical needs of survival and the intimate hopes for protection. The great enigma is that their most profound astrological belief was so woven into the fabric of daily life that they may never have felt the need to write it down. It was simply the way the world worked, as natural as the sunrise and the river's flow, a silent language of the stars spoken by everyone, yet recorded by almost no one. This silent language of the stars, spoken by farmers and pharaohs alike, refused to die with the last Egyptian priest. It instead slipped into the shadows, finding new life in the secret scrolls of Hermeticism and the smoky laboratories of the alchemists. When Egypt fell under Roman rule and its temples were closed, its celestial wisdom did not vanish. it was preserved by a determined few who saw in its symbols the keys to universal truth. The legendary figure of Hermes Trismegistus, a Greco-Egyptian fusion of the god Thoth and the Greek Hermes, became the mythical guardian of this knowledge. The Hermetic texts attributed to him are saturated with Egyptian cosmological ideas reframed for a new age. They speak of the principle of correspondence, the famous axiom, as above, so below. This was not an abstract philosophy, but a direct echo of the Egyptian worldview, where the celestial Nile mirrored the earthly one and the gods in the stars governed the fate of humans. The Egyptian zodiac, with its animal-headed deities representing cosmic forces, provided a perfect map for this interconnected universe. An alchemist seeking to transform lead into gold was not merely performing a chemical experiment. He was reenacting a cosmic process mirroring the sun's journey through the zodiacal signs, each metal Chinese letter to a specific planet and celestial influence. The Lion of Leo, representing the fierce, purifying power of the sun, was a crucial symbol in their art, a direct inheritance from the Egyptian lion goddess Sekhmet. The mystery here is one of transformation. How did the practical, star-clocked Decans of the Nile evolve into the symbolic keys of the European mystic? The answer lies in a centuries-long game of telephone played by secret societies and underground networks. Greek philosophers studied in Egyptian temples. Their writings were preserved by Islamic scholars during the Middle Ages and then rediscovered by Renaissance magi like Marsilio Ficino. Each group translated the knowledge, adding layers of Neoplatonic philosophy and Christian mysticism, yet the core Egyptian framework remained visible beneath the surface. The real enigma is whether these later traditions truly understood the original Egyptian context, or if they were interpreting a beautiful, fragmented relic through their own lens. When a Renaissance alchemist drew a diagram of the zodiac surrounded by Egyptian gods, was he accessing an unbroken chain of wisdom, or was he piecing together a puzzle with half the pieces missing, creating a new mystery from the bones of an old one? This esoteric legacy ensured that the soul of the Egyptian zodiac did not perish. It simply went underground, whispering its secrets about the unity of the cosmos to those who knew how to listen, shaping Western magic and mysticism in ways we are only beginning to fully appreciate. The stone pathways to the gods were not built at random, but were laid down in perfect conversation with the sky. Scattered across the Egyptian desert, the great temples of Karnak, Luxor, and Abu Simbel may appear to stand in isolation, yet a compelling theory suggests they were orchestrated into a single, breathtaking design. Each sacred structure was precisely aligned to the rising or setting of a specific star or constellation, effectively turning the entire country into a vast, three-dimensional zodiac map. The axis of the temple of Amun-Ra at Karnak, for instance, is oriented so that the light of the rising sun on the winter solstice would travel down the long, dark hallway to illuminate the inner sanctuary where the god's statue resided. But this was more than just solar worship. Other temples faced the point on the horizon where Sirius would make its dramatic heliacal reappearance, while some are locked onto the circumpolar imperishable stars. This was celestial architecture on a staggering scale. The mystery lies in the grand coordination of it all. Was each temple an independent star marker, or were they all connected, creating a terrestrial mirror of the heavens laid out across the Nile Valley? Imagine a priest traveling from one temple to the next, his journey mimicking the sun's voyage through the constellations. The temple aligned with Leo would be a place of raw solar power, while one aligned with a Decan of the Nile flood would be a site of fertility and renewal. This suggests the landscape itself was a functional component of their zodiac, a place where the cosmic power of a specific star could be channeled and amplified for rituals on the ground. The sheer logistics of such a plan are mind-bending, requiring a secret priestly cartography that understood the precise geography of Egypt and the precise movements of the sky. Did they use the Nile itself as a central meridian, mapping the celestial river directly onto the earthly one? The silent, stoic temples standing today are the proof of a vision so immense it is difficult to fully grasp, a vision that may have seen the soul of Egypt not just in its people or its pharaohs, but in the very soil beneath their feet, deliberately consecrated to reflect the stars above. While the pharaohs claimed their power from the stars, the cosmos itself was cradled in the body of a woman. The overarching sky was not a vague expanse but the goddess Nut, a divine being whose star-studded form arched over the earth, swallowed the sun each evening and gave birth to it again at dawn. This feminine principle was the very canvas upon which the Egyptian zodiac was painted, a profound mystery that sets it apart from the more male-dominated pantheons of later cultures. Why was the ultimate celestial realm, the source of all cyclical time, envisioned as a mother? The answer may lie in the core Egyptian understanding of creation itself, where the act of bringing forth life was the most powerful force in the universe. Nut was not a passive backdrop, she was an active, generative womb. The sun sailed across her belly by day and traveled through her star-filled body by night, a nightly journey of death and rebirth made possible only through her. This transforms the entire night sky from a distant map into an intimate, living process of gestation and delivery. Every sunrise was a miracle of celestial birth, an event overseen by a mother goddess. This foundational belief infused their entire astrological system with a unique character. Other goddesses held equally vital roles in this cosmic drama. Isis, the devoted wife and powerful magician, was inextricably linked to Sirius, the dog star. As Sirius heralded the life-giving flood of the Nile, Isis was celebrated as the one whose tears of mourning for her husband Osiris caused the river to swell. Her grief literally nourished the nation. This connection ties a goddess emotional world directly to the most important astronomical event of the year, framing a cosmic phenomenon not as a cold mechanical trigger, but as an act of divine feminine empathy. Then there is Hathor, the goddess of joy, love, and music, in whose temple at Denderah the great zodiac was found. She was the mistress of the sky, a celestial cow whose legs were the four pillars of the universe and whose belly was the Milky Way. To be under her protection was to be immersed in the benevolent, creative forces of the cosmos. The mystery is how this pervasive feminine presence shaped the interpretation of the stars. In a system where the Great Mother Nut enveloped everything, could any celestial event be seen as purely aggressive or destructive? Even the dangerous, chaotic forces were often balanced by a feminine counterpart, a nurturing or protective aspect. This suggests the Egyptian zodiac was less about conquest and control, and more about cycles, renewal, and the protective, life-giving power that flows through the universe. The constellations were not just a collection of animal and hero figures, they were children of the Sky Mother, each one a part of her endless, regenerative dance. Why did a civilization known for its powerful male pharaohs envision the ultimate source of cosmic order as female? Perhaps they understood that the deepest mysteries of time, fate, and the stars themselves were rooted not in dominion, but in the primordial creative power of the mother. The vibrant blues and golds on a temple wall were never just decorative. In the Egyptian cosmic language, color was a precise and potent form of information, a code that revealed the very nature of their star gods. When a priest painted the sky goddess Nut a deep, shimmering blue, he was not simply depicting the night. He was using a specific pigment, often crafted from costly lapis lazuli, to convey the concept of the primordial waters of creation from which the universe emerged. This celestial ocean was not black or empty, it was a fertile, dark blue, the color of divinity and rebirth. Each planet, known as a wandering star, was assigned its own distinct hue, and the mystery is why these particular colors were chosen. The red ochre used for Mars seems obvious to us, a connection to blood and conflict we still recognize. But what about the Egyptians? Was their choice a simple observation of the planet's reddish tint in the night sky, or did it tie the planet to their own god of chaos, Seth, whose hair was famously red? The color connected the celestial body to a specific, dangerous force within their mythology. The true puzzle comes with the other planets. Jupiter might be rendered in a serene, silvery white, perhaps linking it to the majesty of the king of gods, Ammon. Venus, the morning and evening star, could be shown in a brilliant yellow, connecting it to the golden light of the sun god Ra at the edges of day. These were not random artistic choices. They were a symbolic shorthand, a way to encode a planet's perceived power and personality directly into its image. A constellation painted in green, the color of vegetation and new life, was inherently tied to growth and resurrection. The same figure painted in black, the color of the fertile Nile silt, spoke of potential and the underworld. This chromatic code means we cannot fully understand their zodiac by looking only at the shapes of the constellations. We must also see them in their original, intended colors. A lion drawn in red ochre might represent the destructive fury of Sekhmet, while a lion in gold would embody the life-giving power of the sun. The mystery deepens when we consider that these pigments were made from precious minerals, each with its own spiritual significance. Using lapis lazuli for a star was not just an aesthetic decision, it was an act of devotion, embedding a piece of the sacred stone's essence into the celestial map. So the next time you see a reproduction of an Egyptian zodiac, do not just look at the figures, look at the colors they wear, that specific green, that particular gold, that exact blue. They are not mere paint, they are the forgotten vocabulary of an ancient sky, a silent language of hue and symbol waiting to tell us what the Egyptians truly believed about the power of the wandering stars. That silent drift of the calendar was merely a symptom of a far grander, more imperceptible celestial motion. The positions of the stars themselves were not fixed for all time. A wobble in the Earth's rotation, like a slowly spinning top, causes the entire backdrop of the night sky to shift over a cycle of approximately 26,000 years. This is the precession of the equinoxes, a concept modern science only fully grasped in the last few centuries. But did the priests of the Nile, watching the same sky for millennia, detect this slowest of all celestial clocks? The evidence is not written in plain text, but may be encoded in their most enduring myths. The great sky goddess Nut, who swallowed the sun each evening, was sometimes depicted with her body reoriented, a detail that some researchers argue symbolizes this gradual change in the stellar landscape over vast epochs. The mystery deepens when we examine the Sothic cycle, that 1,460-year period where their calendar realigned with Sirius was itself a direct, observable result of precession. They knew the calendar drifted, and they knew it was tied to the star's return. Could they have extrapolated from this, realizing that if one star's relationship to the sun changed over a great cycle, then all stars must be participating in a universal, slow dance? The most tantalizing clue lies in the shifting dominion of the gods. Their texts speak of a remote age when different deities ruled, a time before the current cosmic order was established. Could this be a mythological memory of the precessional shift from one zodiacal age to another, say from the age of Taurus, the bull, to the age of Aries, the ram? The monuments themselves might hold the final proof. The precise alignment of certain temples, like the Great Sphinx gazing directly at the rising sun on the spring equinox, has led to a compelling, though hotly debated, theory. Some astronomers calculate that around 10,500 BC, the Sphinx would have faced not the sun, but the constellation of Leo at the spring equinox. Is the lion-bodied Sphinx a monumental marker, carved to commemorate the beginning of the age of Leo, a stone sentinel bearing witness to a knowledge of precession so advanced it predates accepted history by thousands of years? The orthodox view maintains the Egyptians saw the cosmos as eternally cyclical but fundamentally static. Yet the sheer duration of their observations, spanning over 3,000 years, provided a dataset unmatched in the ancient world. They had the time to see the patterns shift, The question is not just whether they saw the stars drift, but whether they understood the awesome scale of that drift, and if they left that knowledge for us not in words, but in stone and story, a secret waiting in the slow turn of the earth itself. The stars mapped a path, but did they lock the gate? This brings us to one of the most profound philosophical mysteries of the Egyptian zodiac, the ancient debate between fate and free will. Did the Egyptians believe their lives were a script written irrevocably in the stars, or did they see the celestial patterns as a map suggesting potential, a guide that could be navigated with wisdom and will? The answer lies in their core concept of Maat, the principle of cosmic order, truth, and justice. Maat was not a rigid, predetermined track, but a delicate balance that required constant maintenance through human action. Think of the zodiac not as a prison dictating your fate, but as a weather forecast for the soul. The stars might indicate the prevailing winds and currents you would encounter in your life's journey, a tendency towards certain challenges or blessings. But your boat, your character, and your actions determined whether you sailed smoothly or capsized. A person born under a Decan associated with the god Seth, representing chaos and storm, might be predisposed to conflict or impulsivity. Their celestial forecast was for turbulent waters, yet through living in accordance with Maat, through truthfulness, respect for the gods, and moral conduct, that individual could learn to steer their ship with greater skill, transforming a potential weakness into a source of strength and resilience. Ritual was the practical tool for this navigation. The elaborate ceremonies and spells were not pleased to change the stars themselves, but acts of alignment. By performing a specific rite under a specific constellation, an individual was not begging for a different fate. They were tuning their own spirit to the highest frequency of that celestial force, harmonizing their personal will with the divine current. This is why the pharaoh's role was so critical. His rituals were seen as essential for maintaining Maat for the entire nation, keeping the cosmic balance so that the zodiac's influences remained benevolent and the Nile would flood on time. The mystery, then, is not whether the stars controlled them, but how they collaborated with the cosmos. Your birth chart might set the stage, but you were the actor who decided the performance. Could a life of deceit and chaos, an existence of Isfet, actually repel the positive potential of a favorable star, turning its promise to dust? The Egyptians likely believed so. The zodiac offered a divine blueprint, but humanity held the tools to build a life in harmony with it, or in defiance. This transforms their astrology from a cold fatalism into a dynamic, spiritual partnership with the universe, where every individual had a role to play in weaving their own thread into the great starry tapestry of Maat. The celestial river of the ancient Egyptians now flows through a very different landscape, our own modern world, and its waters have become muddied with our own dreams. The authentic zodiac of Decans and star clocks has been largely replaced in popular imagination by a simplified, often inaccurate version. You can find it on mass-market horoscope websites and in glossy magazines, offering personality profiles based on Egyptian god names, neatly packaged into 12 signs just like the Western zodiac. This modern creation is a fusion, but not the thoughtful syncretism of the Ptolemaic period. It is a commercial and spiritual remix that often bears little resemblance to the original. Hollywood has played a powerful role in this reshaping. Blockbuster films rarely depict the patient, astronomical science of the decanal clock. Instead, they show curses and prophecies linked to vague, dramatic celestial events, reducing a complex cosmic philosophy to a plot device for adventure. The mystery is not that this happens, but why the Egyptian system, in particular, remains such a potent vessel for our fantasies. Perhaps it is the sheer age of the civilization. Its enduring monuments whisper of a lost wisdom we desperately want to access. The animal-headed gods are visually striking and feel esoteric, providing a perfect language for New Age spirituality seeking roots deeper than the medieval tarot or modern psychology. We project our own desire for ancient, secret knowledge onto their symbols, creating a modern myth that is often more about us than it is about them. This creates a profound mystery for anyone seeking the truth. What fragments of genuine Egyptian belief are buried beneath these layers of modern interpretation? When a contemporary practitioner uses a statue of Thoth for wisdom, are they connecting with a thread of the original ibis god's celestial power, or are they merely admiring a beautiful, empty shell? The continued fascination reveals a universal human longing to find order and meaning in the stars, a longing the Egyptians understood intimately. Yet the very act of reshaping their system for our own time may be the greatest testament to its power, a power so compelling that we cannot leave it in the past, even if we must reinvent it to bring it into our present. These ancient riddles are not sealed tombs, but open doors waiting for the right key to turn. The future of Egyptology now hums with the quiet power of satellites orbiting high above the desert. Technologies like LiDAR can pierce through sand and time, revealing the outlines of entire lost cities buried for millennia without ever lifting a shovel. Imagine discovering a new temple complex, its walls covered in previously unknown Decan lists or celestial diagrams that completely reshape our star maps. These tools are not just finding new places, they are redefining the very landscape of the possible, showing us that the stage for the Egyptian zodiac was far wider than we ever knew. Back in the laboratory, other revolutions are brewing. Advanced imaging techniques can now read the ghostly traces of ink on crumbled papyrus scraps once deemed blank, potentially recovering entire chapters of astrological manuals from the dust of trash heaps. There are likely thousands of manuscripts still sealed in unexcavated tombs or mislabeled in museum basements, each one a potential cache of celestial knowledge. But perhaps the most profound key lies in the realm of language itself. The process of translating hieroglyphs is being supercharged by artificial intelligence, which can analyze patterns across millions of texts in seconds, detecting subtle connections that a human eye might miss over a lifetime. An eye might cross-reference a medical papyrus with a temple inscription and a farmer's almanac, suddenly revealing that a specific Decans rising was linked not just to a festival, but to the brewing of a certain medicine or the optimal time for river navigation. This could unlock the zodiac's practical, daily applications, moving it from the realm of priestly ritual into the hands of everyday people. The greatest discovery of all might still be waiting in the sands, a pristine library from a major temple, a place where the full, uncorrupted knowledge of the star clocks was recorded. Finding such a trove would be like recovering the operator's manual for the entire Egyptian cosmos, giving us back the guide who has been silent for 2,000 years. What we currently understand about their celestial science might only be the first few words of a story that is yet to be fully read. From the silent, patient observation of the Decans to the grand celestial architecture of the temples, we have journeyed through 20 profound mysteries. We have traced the enigmatic origins of their zodiac, questioned the cultural fusion at Denderah, and felt the immense scale of the Sothic cycle. We have seen how the stars were a clock for farmers, a map for the dead in the Book of the Dead, and a source of power for pharaohs. We have pondered lost constellations, the hidden knowledge of the pyramid texts, and the silent drift of the calendar that may have concealed a secret zodiac. We have uncovered the feminine power of the sky goddess Nut, the chromatic code of the planets, and the philosophical debate between fate and free will woven into man. We have followed their esoteric legacy into alchemy and hermeticism, and considered the tantalizing possibility that they understood the great wobble of precession, perhaps even carving the Sphinx as a monument to the age of Leo. The ancient Egyptian zodiac stands as a monumental achievement, a seamless blend of precise science, profound religion, and breathtaking art. It was their way of explaining the universe, governing society, and assuring the soul's safe passage, all under one star-filled sky. That same night sky, clear and vast, still holds these ancient secrets. The Decans still rise, Sirius still returns, and the cosmic river continues its eternal flow. These mysteries are not closed. They are an open invitation to all of us to simply look up and wonder, which of these 20 enigmas calls out to you most? Does the lost stellar religion of the pyramids haunt your thoughts, or are you drawn to the hidden engineering of the decanal clock? Share the mystery that captures your imagination in the comments below, and let us continue this conversation under the same stars that guided the ancients.